this episode, we talk about why you should say yes. Get excited because this is Tiny Leaps. Big change. Welcome to another episode of Tiny Leaps, Big Changes, where I share simple, research-backed strategies you can use to get more out of your life. My name is Greg Clunas, and the life that we live, this is something I say all the time, the life that we live is directly related to the choices that we make. And you know that. This isn't anything groundbreaking, I hope. I mean, if it is groundbreaking for you, you're welcome. But for most of you, it's not that interesting or that new, right? But for some reason, we seem to forget it. We seem to forget that the life we are living now, while there are, of course, external circumstances, there's things we don't control, while there are, of course, laws on the books that affect us in different ways and things that we just are not able to really affect by our decisions, while that is the case, a large part of what creates the life we live now are decisions that we make and that we made. And of course, it's decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis. You know, I wake up and I choose whether or not to work out. I wake up and I choose what to eat that day. And if I choose to eat the wrong thing, I might end the day with a stomachache. And that was a direct relationship to the choice I had. That's a life experience I now have because I made a choice, right? So there's that. But there's also the trickier ones, because our life is in honestly, maybe even a bigger way, a direct relationship to the choices we made 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 16 and 3/4 years ago. Like, our life today is a result of things we don't even remember saying yes or no to. And that's where it gets complicated. That's where it gets to be so big that the human brain, or at least not my human brain, can't even really calculate it. There is something that I said yes to 13 years ago on a random Tuesday when it was raining in the spring. There's some random thing that I said yes or no to that led in some small, tiny way to the life I have today. That's insane when you think about it. And it's even more insane when you realize that's everything. That's every choice. It's not just, oh, I made this one choice 13 years ago that did this thing. It's every single choice I have made in my entire life led to this moment. You get this really complex web of yeses and nos. It's really quite terrifying to think of. But it's how things work. Again, there are external circumstances, but the part that we do control is such a broad spider web of choices that we'll never really be able to comprehend or trace back. And because we can't trace it back, because we're not smart enough, or at least most of us aren't smart enough to be able to trace it back, it feels random. It feels like it just happened that way. Like we just woke up and this was our life. But that isn't really the case, because it is a result of the yeses and the nos that we chose. We said yes to go to that party. And that's where we met this person. And that person then led down this path. For those of you listening who are married or in long-term relationships of some kind, any kind, you met your significant other, your partner, somewhere in the world, I assume. I mean, maybe it was an arranged marriage thing, but for the non-arranged marriage people, you met them somewhere. And you met them because you said yes to something, or you said no to something else. And then after you met them, you kept waking up and saying yes to them. Yes to the next date. Yes to them coming over. Yes to hanging out. Yes to getting married. Yes to having kids. That is what created the life that you have. Now, when we get back, I want to share where I think this has the power to go. Because I believe if the choices we make, the yeses and the nos that we make on a day-to-day basis are going to create the next 10 years of our lives, how do we reverse that? How do we create the next 10 years of our lives and link it back to the choices we make today? So stay tuned. So here's my question. What if we reversed it? What if we started with the life that we want? And you can call this vision boarding. You can call it dreaming. You can call it manifesting. You can honestly call it whatever you want to call it. But what if we reverse this process? We start with, I want this. So I want to live a life of health, or I want to find love, or I want to get a six-pack, or I want to go running every day, or I want to buy a house, right? You dream up the life that you want, and you really spend some time on that, just thinking, going down the list: fitness, nutrition, finances, career, relationships, mental health, emotional health. What do I want for this? What is important to me here? What life do I want to live for this area of my life? Start there. Really dream about it. Write it down if you have to. Cut out newspaper clippings or magazine clippings or whatever they used to do in the 80s if you want to. Like, do whatever you need to do to really visualize this. Get that life in your head. Now, if you start there, and if we look back at the beginning of this, right? So we wake up every day and we say yes to some things and we say no to other things. Every time we make that choice, it creates a branch. Right? So say our life was linear, right? It's just going that way. Every time we make a choice, it adds like a little branch, like pop, just like pop. For those of you listening in audio, you can't see what I'm doing. This seems super weird. For those of you on video, it makes a little bit more sense. Maybe it's still weird. Who knows? Anyway, the point is, every choice that you make adds a branch. Now that branch in what your life was going to be leads to a totally different outcome. Or maybe not totally different, but it does lead in a different direction. And you can take that branch. And to take that branch, you have to keep saying yes or no in the right order, the right sequence that leads down that road. And of course, at the end of that road, and at the end of all the other branches that come from that road, you land on some outcome. By the end, you've made so many choices that you can't link the two together, but they are related. So what if we reverse that? What if we start with, I want to end here. I want to live here. I want my life here. What if we start with that? And where we are now, we can't see the branch. It doesn't exist yet. We haven't made the choices that leads down that path. So we look at it, and it's not like plugging it into like Google Maps or something. We can't just chart the path, right? But we look at it and we can see that it's on the map. We know that somehow, somewhere, there is some path of choices, of yeses and nos that leads down this direction. And so what if we just treated it the way that old school adventurers did? The people who walked across America and walked across Europe and walked across all of these places drawing maps. What if we did that for our lives? Where we chose, I want to go here. And I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm going to start moving in the direction. Because I can see on the map that it's maybe a little bit north of me. Maybe a little northeast. Maybe 300, 400 miles or so. So I'm just going to start moving in that direction. And I'm going to start taking the actions that push me in that direction. I think if we do that, if we start with that end, and we start taking actions that move us vaguely in that direction, I think the branches appear. And when they appear, I think we then get to choose yes or no if we want that outcome. So make the choice. You're already making them. You're already creating the next 10 years of your life. You might as well design it. You might as well choose where you want to end up. And as I said in my last episode, maybe you won't land amongst the stars, but you will move in the direction that you want to go. And your life will be far more what you want it to be than it would have been otherwise. So I encourage you to do this. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I want to encourage you to check out today's sponsor, Quince. They are phenomenal luxury goods at non-luxury prices. Check them out by going to onequince.com, using the coupon code TINY10 to get 10% off your first $100 off. Thank you so much for being here, and remember that all big changes come from the tiny leaps you take every day.